Greetings, unsettled souls. Sam DiGangi, queuing cameras, trying to cue cameras. Welcome to the correct views, guys. It is, of course, the massive Fukushima update. A mere hours before I went live, I had heard about the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Not exactly a topic that ties into the massive Fukushima update. Or is it? I imagine over the next couple of days, you're going to hear people talking about why Trump, which he is legally allowed to name another justice. You're going to hear people say yes, but he was against it when Obama wanted to do it, and it's going to be its own seesaw. I'll let you guys listen to that because there'll be that from every host on YouTube. You get something different from me as you're trickling in. Hello, YouTube. I see you there on Media Speaks. Hit share. Yes, you hit share. Thank you. All of you hit share. When Ruth Bader Ginsberg, a far leftist, of course, a lawyer for the far left ACLU, the often God-hating ACLU, however you want to look at it, there was the hope among those of us who had some kind of common sense in terms of the nuclear industry. There was hope that Ruth Bader Ginsberg, being a leftist, would help us greatly when it came to speaking common sense into energy production, into talking about the dangers of nuclear generation. Far left as she was, a lot of people hoped that there could be some good that came out of it that way. As it turned out, that was not the case. And I'm not happy she's dead. We don't celebrate death here at the Correct Views. I will miss my jokes. I used to tell people, I get to tell it at least one more time. If you were on my friends list and you donated to the show, which you can do at the Correct Views at hotmail.com through PayPal, if you did all of that, I would send you the Ruth Bader swimsuit calendar for Christmas. Yeah, I'm going to miss saying it. Hey, she fought cancer. She fought cancer hard. And for that, we don't mock people's death. But she was a detriment to this country. She was one of the single worst things to ever happen to the country. And when it came to us at least hoping that she would come out against nuclear technologies and the dangers of them in terms of nuclear power generation, we hope that she would do that. And as it turned out, she was a part of the leftist agenda that she didn't seem to bring with her a lot. So yeah, go ahead, think about that. Here's what I'm going to leave you with on that topic. I am a big fan of America's Judge Andrew Napolitano. And there has been some talk that he and Mr. Trump don't get along, supposedly because Trump didn't pick him when he picked Neil Gorsuch shortly after he took office. I was actually somewhat with Napolitano on that. However, as much as I love and respect the dear judge, and I wrote about him a lot when I was at the Conservative Daily Post and Teddy Stick before the left stole my job. Napolitano has really, how do I want to word this? I still respect the man. I want to word this somewhat carefully, at least for me. And then that's not saying much, I guess. You could see his bias, and that was a little bit of a worry. You could see his bias. Trump didn't pick him. So, I mean, I guess that is what it is too. But Trey Gowdy, that's what I'm leaving you with. I would like to see Trey Gowdy, and I'll tell you why. Then I'm going to get into the rest of the Fukushima stuff. But you have to talk about this if you have a show like mine. People are still trickling in anyway. Hello, Facebook. Yes, I see you. Thank you. Gowdy would be a wonderful choice because he has immediate name recognition, which isn't something common for judges unless it's like Judge Judy or, Cotton Providence, who I found out today through my friend. He's interesting. But there's not many judges that are household names who would be a good choice. Napolitano is one. Gowdy My wife and I used to watch Trey Gowdy on Forensics Files. 3 years this weekend. Anyway, Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy would be wonderful, and it would really rile the left. At the same time, it would be somebody who's more than qualified for the job. And I remember how, everybody harassed Harriet Myers. I still think she would not have been as bad of a judge as other people said at the time. But anyway, moving onward, friends, I have covered the passing of Ginsberg. Again, horrible, horrible person. But my respects to her family and my respects for how she fought cancer. She's just horrible for the country, that's all. All right, friends, all Fukushima Nation stuff now, I promise. Here we go. Smoke in D.C. skies travel thousands of miles from the West Coast. Washington Post. All right, I see you tuning out. Specifically you. Yes, you there in the back with a mouth full of popcorn. I see you tuning out. And the reason you're tuning out is you're like, all right, I tuned into the Massive Fukushima update. He gave me Ruth Bader Ginsberg. Hello, Paula. Thank you for listening. He gave me Ruth Bader Ginsberg, and he gave me, now he's giving me the jet stream. I'm done. The wildfires, I should say. As I gave you a hint, the wildfires I'm giving you here, it explains in ways that people can understand why the Fukushima disaster is still so important today. And it's really easy to explain. How many of you, leave me a comment, leave me something to let me know if you're one of these people who were like me. You saw the sunset go down and it looked really weird, and I'm here in Ohio, for crying out loud. And I just remember thinking that the sunset looked very, very strange, and I couldn't figure out why. Next day I found out, from the same person who introduced me to cod in Providence, that these were from the wildfires. Smoke kicked up from the wildfires in California. And the jet stream had taken them, of course, west from east. The airflow had brought it now to Ohio. And the reason I mentioned this, and the reason I wanted to start the show with this, is that, as we covered before, 4.3 something, I have it in the description here, billion years it takes for radioactive uranium 238 to reach its half-life. 4 billion years, 4.3 billion years. But you can't see it. It's still happening in Fukushima. It's still spewing into the air, into the jet stream. You don't care. You may not even listen to the show all the way through because you can't see it. Of course, the radiation, it can't be seen, it can't be tasted. All right, look, the particles that we're talking about coming out of Fukushima and being caught into the jet stream are smaller and lighter and travel further, quicker than heavy ash from this. And heavy, speaking, in terms of what travels in the jet stream, I mean, far more deadly. Billion years? The accident in 2011 didn't happen 5 seconds ago in terms of a billion years. And here the Washington Post, glancing skyward into milky orange haze, you may be noticing dimmed sun in our skies. It says that the haze is from the massive western wildfires. It's just a very small taste of what California, Oregon, and Washington State have been dealing with. You can see it. Okay? You can see it visibly in the skies right now. And if it's happening with ash from California washing over, then it's certainly happening still in the exact way we talk about when we keep track of the radiation being spewed out from Fukushima. Don't you think that's traveling on the jet stream too? And now you can see it. Now you have some kind of visual representation. You can see how this travels. Oh, it's in Japan, so it's not going to bother me any. Bullshit. You can see it with the ash now. And I hope people share this to other people you know that blow this off. Share it to people that live maybe where, like I'm out here in Ohio. Share it to people like that. And maybe it'll help them understand the gravity of what it is and why, here we continue with the massive Fukushima update. Listen to this NPR. How two towns that host a Fukushima power plant recover after the 2011 nuclear disaster. This is a nightmare. Dated September 8th, 2020. This is a nightmare. These are more idiots trying to show the world how they're going to give themselves cancer so that they can go ahead and move back into a contaminated area. Then we'll be dangerously contaminated until the end of the half-life in 4.3 billion years. It says two Japanese towns that host the Fukushima power plant stood to gain a lot from the promises of nuclear power, but now they're talking about it's clear how much they've lost. Yeah. That's what happens when you build nuclear power plants, specifically when you build them in areas of high earthquake activity, which you warned about. And you might say, oh, that's what's happening. It's happening in Iran now. The idiot wants to build a power plant in Bashar, which is being clobbered in earthquakes and being predicted by the same people that predicted Fukushima to have the same outcome in Iran. How do you reopen a nuclear power exchange zone? You don't. That is the question Japan has been trying to answer since 2011. No shit. I don't normally swear on the show, but my God, man, NPR, lowest common denominator. NPR's Kat Lonsdorf went to Fukushima to find out what recovery looks like nearly a decade later. And he's talking to a person it says identified person. This is Futaba, a town that was once home to over 7,000 people, at least until the disaster when plumes of radioactive material were carried by the winds for miles. Whole towns were suddenly abandoned for years. Since then, Futaba has been struck with an eerie freeze frame of tragedy. I'm going to step foot into the town of Futaba because it's officially open in what looks like a pretty quaint little city street. Little buildings and little shops. Of course, no one lives here, so it's deserted city street that we're walking down. And he says only these few blocks of downtown Futaba remain open. And the entire eeriness of the article, again, you can find it on NPR, is this whole, oh, we need to just get over it now. The disaster was a terrible thing, but it's done. And it's time to return to happy life. It is a radioactive death zone. They say, oh, the vegetation is flourishing. If you look at the vegetation, the leaves and whatnot are growing out of themselves in strange formations. They are heavily mutated. Yeah, they're growing large. That oftentimes happens when things are mutated. That's why newborns are born with a head like a bowling ball. I mean, the level of stupidity that we have to put up with is just breathtaking when it talks about this. Radiation levels have generally decreased since the accident, both due to human cleanup and natural decay of radioactive particles. Yeah, if you're testing for the ones that decay, how about plutonium? 30 years, how about uranium? How about America? How about the ones that last are still glowing? It's just the whole article has this sickiness to it. It says these two towns, Okuma and Futaba, once gained a lot from nuclear power. When Daiichi was built back in the 70s, they shared a wealth of subsidies and tax revenues. Yeah, that's always the lie of radiation. That's always what they bait you in with. Do you realize that if we had, this is one of the reasons I'm a libertarian, and one of the ways that I don't agree with the Trumpster, who I support, and it's why I'm not supporting the libertarian candidate now, Jo Jorgensen. You know, she's like mad nuke in favor of nuclear everything. Let me explain to you two reasons why libertarianism could solve our problem if it was applied properly. First and foremost, libertarians would not allow you to have a nuclear power, but the same reason that libertarians don't have a problem with legalizing drugs, but your neighbor can't have a meth lab. Let me explain this. Let's say that I'm allegedly smoking weed in a duplex and I have a neighbor who doesn't like it. It's none of the neighbor's business. None, especially if it's done in the closed quarters. And this isn't true. I have an awesome duplex neighbor, and I would never smoke weed. But if I did, none of her business. No, it wouldn't be any of her business. However, same token, if I had a meth lab here, that meth lab blows up. Goodbye duplex, goodbye neighbor, goodbye everything she owns. Probably the end of her life. Done, over, finished, done, gone out. To quote Anthrax. Having a nuke plant is pretty much like having a meth lab as a duplex neighbor. Secondly, libertarians don't like handing out subsidies, and nuclear power plants would not exist if they were not subsidized, because they are expensive to insure that they can't be insured. And if that money is not given to them, they cannot exist. That is very important for you to remember. Very, very important. Because we see this time and time again where people say, oh, it's such a big problem, it's such a massive problem, this, that, or the other. What can we do to stop it? Stopping the subsidies for these plants is one thing. We had the whole Occupy movement. Occupy the city, occupy the bathrooms, occupy my balls. Why aren't you occupying where they want to build new nuke plants and saying, no, you can't send that carcinogenic crap into my air? No, I've done enough research that I know that homes that live near nuclear power stations have higher incidences of all cancers among all groups, among all sexes. And no, you can't build that here. We're going to occupy it. We're going to refuse to let you dig. No, we want to talk about systemic racism. There's racism everywhere. Racist, racist, racist. Meanwhile, they're building nuclear power plants, which are raining death down on everyone, and there is hardly a word said. And I'm telling you now how to stop it. Eliminating subsidies for these companies. You want to know another way to stop it? I've mentioned it before, but there's people trickling in on different streams. Here's another way to stop it. Don't invest in GE, because GE is TEPCO. That's what caused Fukushima. Don't invest in Westinghouse. Don't invest in companies that have nuclear power. Are you someone who has your money in a mutual fund? Get it out of a mutual fund. If any of the companies that are supporting nuclear power are involved, get your money out of it. You can put it into an infrastructure mutual fund. It returns a little less, but you're not supporting garbage, and they always return something, which regular mutual funds are sometimes a higher dividend with more gamble to begin with. So just take a look at it. Get your money out of these industries, and you'll find that they oftentimes they'll vanish on their own if we quit feeding the monster. Friend Zepper, I got 2 dumbdees today. 2. This is our You Are an Idiot music. If you want to donate, friends, you can do so. thecorrectviews@hotmail.com. You can donate through PayPal. That's right, PayPal. thecorrectviews@hotmail.com through PayPal. I sound like Joe Biden. I don't even know where to tell you to donate at. I gotta get this right. Come on, man. Come on, man. If you don't know who Joe Biden is, you have no idea what I'm saying. But he says that all the time. All right, the 2 dumbdees. One of them, come on, man. These American cars. I'm going to read this to you exactly the way they have it written. These American cars were abandoned in Fukushima, Japan since 2011. It makes it sound like, hey, let's go, and I hope someday these cars find a happy home. Do you There are many people, and I'm one of them, that this is motor1.com. I'm one of them who have seen studies where there are not even some parts being sent from certain places of Japan. They're not necessarily toxic, but the parts are a little more radioactive than anywhere else in the world for obvious reasons coming out of Japan. It's not every part. I don't want to slander anyone, but it's common. Run a Geiger counter over many of the parts. This video is particularly when the disaster first happened. I think many of them now have moved their plants or whatever, which is why I don't want to paint with too broad of a brush here. But do you have any idea how radioactive these parts would be just sitting there? And listen to the way I focused heavily on this edition of the show about how it's candy coated. It's so progressive to accept Fukushima. It's so progressive and forward thinking to open up all of these things and to go ahead and, it's been so long and many people don't even remember the Fukushima disaster. Well, you know what? Show them this show. Show them the way it's been raining through the sky and you can see it in the sunset. Show them and maybe they'll understand what the radioactive particles have been doing since 2011. But listen to this article. I'm skipping where he says what the Fukushima disaster was. Due to this, residents within a 12-mile radius of the power plant were evacuated, writes Jacob Olivia, who looks like he has a mohawk that looks like a turd on his head. One of these dealerships is what you see here, and there's a picture, of course, in the article, located in an abandoned town in the Fukushima prefecture. Most notable is a tangerine orange 1962 Chevy Impala beside a black Lincoln Town Car. There's a 2006 Toyota Tundra, an 89 Nissan 240SX, Fleetwood Brougham, and I don't have to follow cars that much. But it says, listen to this, listen. Still, the beauty of these machines is apparent, and we sure hope that they find a home if deemed safe. That's like saying, I hope to have unprotected sex with an AIDS patient when it's deemed safe, who's not on any treatment of any kind. The dumbdee of the day, friends. All right, there's one of the dumbdees left. One more thing, one more show to get to. We've covered this before, but it's still stupid. Fukushima surfers return nearly a decade after the Fukushima disaster from newscientist.com. That, again, is like saying Fukushima surfers have decided to inject heroin because it's probably okay this time. Exact same. It's exactly the same. There's no deviation there. It's exactly the same thing. This surfer, idiot, Darwinism. This surfer is one of many hoping to catch waves at Kitsuzumi Beach in Japan's Fukushima prefecture. The coastal spot was once hailed as a surfer's paradise thanks to its high waves and sandy shores, yet it's been almost a decade since it has been able to be enjoyed with that status. And of course, it talks again, I'm skipping that, about the disaster itself. Due to a lack of space, Japan plans to tip 1 million tons of contaminated water stored into the disaster. From the disaster, we've covered that. They're storing water at the plant. They want to dump it into the ocean. And yet they're still encouraging people to come to Fukushima to surf while telling everybody how safe it's going to be in Tokyo. And if you think that's dumb, make sure you catch the dunce cap of the month. It'll be sometime before the end of the month. How's that? If you'd like to donate, support what I do, help me to afford to send dunce caps, you can do so at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com through PayPal. All the money you give to me goes towards a better show. Hitting share, friends, is a help beyond my ability to say it properly, articulate properly. So please, I ask you to please do that. Good night, friends. God bless. Thanks for listening.